Hello everyone! If you look at the new scenarios, we have City Builder 6 and City Builder 7. City Builder 6, it's about creating and discussing the demand curve, which is a very important concept in economics. Let's jump right into that. I'm gonna get into easy mode, but you could access this in also sandbox mode or hard mode if you wanted. Please check the first workshop if you have any question about the different modes. Very well, here I am. I'm gonna just mute the game so that the audio does not distract us too much. There you go. Now in this level here, we are gonna talk about something that has to do with consumption choices. So far, we have built this economy step by step, always assuming that there was only one final good, blueberries, that were available in the market. Only one good. So there wasn't much consumer choice there. People would just spend the money that they have budgeted for consumption on that good. But what if you have multiple goods that you could purchase? Like, for example, blueberries and red berries, both of them. You can see them here in the market UI. We have not just the labor market and not just our usual blueberry market, but also a red berry market right here. Okay, now the choice becomes, how should I spend my budget? And how should I decide how much money to spend purchasing red berry versus purchasing blueberries? That's the key question. And in fact, part of the scenario, if you go into the clearing here in the woods, you're gonna see that you can have a chat with this character, we'll explain everything, and then you're gonna be facing an interesting decision. You've got a budget, which you can inspect by opening this tab. You have a few dollars here available to you to spend, and the choice is between red berries and blueberries. If you talk with the seller, they are gonna tell you the price, $3 and $4, which is the same price that you could see in this UI. That's the price at which currently red berries and blueberries are selling. If you right-click on this pile of goods, you can see the happiness equation, which is 2.5 multiplied by the square root of the number of red berries that you're eating. This is a concept we have already seen before in our previous workshops, but I'm going to go over it again just in 1 second. And then we have blueberries. If I right-click, I can see the equation for that as well. We are also doing something here that it's a little bit like facilitating how you understand this equation, because this character up here is actually telling you exactly what's going on. You start with a budget of $27, and your next red berry will give you 2.5 happiness. Your next blueberry will give you 5 happiness. So you know the budget, and you know what's gonna be the extra happiness that each one of these goods is giving you, red berry and blueberry. Now, before I go any further on this, let me pop up my slides 1 second to just flesh out very quickly what are the concepts that we are using here. And the most important one is the concept of utility here. We, time and time again in the game, talk about happiness because it's a concept that people usually understand more readily. In economics, the terminology that we use, to be precise, or if you want, the jargon that economists use, is to refer to happiness as utility. So utility represents the satisfaction or happiness that an individual derives from consuming a given good or taking a certain action. It's measured in utils per unit of time. The real important thing here is that it's measured in utils. That's basically the unit of measure of happiness in economics per unit of time. Everything we are gonna see here is gonna be happiness that you accrue from the different goods per unit of time, per market cycle. Think of it as a stomach. You digest this food over a market cycle. If you eat a lot of red berries or blueberries just back to back within the same market cycle, it is as if you're filling up the stomach with these goods, and it's possible that eating too many of them could actually not be good for you, or certainly have a decreasing effect on your happiness. But of course, when your stomach clears in the next market cycle, we start again accruing happiness as if we have eaten the first blueberry or red berry. The order, the number of them that you eat per cycle is really important, because your happiness is a function of how many units you consume per cycle, per unit of time. Very well. Now, this is really what we're going to talk about in this level, utils, and how much satisfaction you get from different goods. Let me give you an example, and I'm not going to try to solve the level. I'm going to leave this to you, but check it out. Blueberries are $4, red berries are $3. The next red berry is gonna give me 2.5 happiness. Let's say that I decide to go for a red berry. I purchase it, very well, I got it, and now I can put it on my consumption table here. So I put it in there, and as soon as it's in my stomach on the table, meaning ready for consumption, you can see that the utility, the happiness, the utils that I'm receiving from red berries has decreased from 2.5 to 1.4. So this is a very interesting concept. If you want, the first, I'm going to just draw a little graph as usual here. The first unit consumed, the first red berry, I'm going to put the red berries here, and I'm going to call this quantity per cycle. And sorry, I'm gonna actually not do that, so this is not correct. I'm gonna put the utility. So this is the utils per cycle. There you have it on the y-axis, and this is the quantity, which is red berries per cycle. There you have it. And this is really the price of red berries, so the price, sorry, the utility that you get from red berries. The first red berry would give me a satisfaction equal to 2.5. This is the amount of happiness that I get by consuming the first red berry. The second red berry is giving me an increment of happiness, an increase in happiness. So going from 1 to 2 red berries generates an increment of happiness which is only equal to 1.04 as it's expressed in that speech bubble there. So as you can see, the next red berry is giving me a little less happiness. So if I had to plot this going forward, the utility curve would look a little bit like this. What does this mean? That well, adding and eating extra red berries is certainly giving me more and more happiness, but less and less so as I increase the quantity that I consume. For example, if I go and get another red berry and I put it in my stomach, you can see that now the happiness of the next one is going to be even lower, 0.79. It gets lower and lower, so this jump, which is big initially, is getting smaller and smaller as I eat more and more red berries. Now, what are we going to do here is the classic cost-benefit analysis. Nothing new. We are going to take into consideration the concept of decreasing marginal utility, which we saw in previous workshops as well, which captures the fact that the utility from consuming an extra unit of anything usually decreases with the number of units that have been previously consumed within that market cycle. That's why utility is measured in utils per market cycle, per unit of time, because it has to keep into consideration what we have been previously consumed within that market cycle. And on top of this, we put to use our cost-benefit principle. Let's decide whether to consume and purchase one red berry by thinking at the margin. Should I purchase the first red berry or not? That's the action that you're trying to evaluate. And in order to do that, we should just compare the marginal benefit and the marginal cost of purchasing and consuming the first red berry. The marginal benefit, it's easy to calculate here. In this case, for example, the marginal benefit of the third red berry is 0.79. So if you eat the third red berry, you would get 0.79 utils. The thing that is a little trickier to calculate, as usual, is the marginal cost. In order to calculate the marginal cost proper, you need to understand what is the opportunity cost of purchasing that red berry. Because in this world, there are only two goods, red berries and blueberries, and that's the only use of money that you have in the game at this point. Well, buying a red berry just means that you're gonna have to sacrifice a little bit of blueberries. With the money that you spend for purchasing a red berry, you are foregoing a certain amount of blueberries. In this example, I would spend $3 to buy a red berry, and with that amount of money, with $3, I could have bought a fraction of a blueberry. So $3 wouldn't be even enough to buy an entire blueberry. However, let's compare their marginal utility. So if you purchase one red berry now, you would spend $3 and gain 0.79 happiness. You could have used that money to purchase a fraction of a blueberry, but that fraction would have given you a lot of happiness. It would have been 5 utils if you had eaten one entire blueberry, and with the money that you saved from not purchasing the red berry, you could have gotten a fraction of that happiness. Now, how do we clarify this logic about trying to calculate the actual value of eating a red berry expressed in terms of opportunity cost? Well, the answer to that is to really think about the marginal utility per dollar. If you divide the marginal utility that red berry is giving you by the price of red berries, so divide 0.79 by the price of red berries, then you are gonna get the marginal utility per dollar, the marginal utility for each dollar. In other words, you are trying to adjust the happiness that red berry gives you by the price that you need to pay for it. So you are normalizing the marginal utility of a red berry, making it a per dollar marginal utility. If you do the same exercise for blueberry, the marginal utility of blueberry, 5, divided by the price of blueberries, $4, you would get the marginal utility per dollar of a blueberry. Now, these are much better in terms of allowing you to compare the two, because now you are comparing the marginal utility of red berries and the marginal utility of blueberries per dollar. You are normalizing the price, and you can make a better comparison. And this is the way you should think about the decision of what to consume. You should think about the happiness that something gives you, but also how much money it costs. So normalize that, divide that by the price, and then compare across the various options. So you can compare the marginal benefit for each dollar that you are receiving from the red berry, and you can readily compare that with the marginal utility per dollar of a blueberry, and that is the opportunity cost. This level offers also a quizard here that will help you understand the concept a little bit better. So give it a look. Also, feel free to check the textbook if things are still unclear. The first part of this level is you making a decision about what to eat. And let's say I basically go against everything that I said right now, and I just eat a lot of red berries, something like that. And maybe I finish my budget by eating a couple of blueberries as well. Very well. I think my budget now is pretty low. There you have it. Now going to the next part of the level, here we want to learn how to make these decisions when the situation is such that these prices may be changing. So what happens if the price of a red berry, for example, increases or decreases? How should you respond in an automated fashion to this change in price? For example, you could approach this dialogue by literally suggesting this consumer what to do in terms of their next consumption decision. They're going to tell you the next blueberry costs $4 and gives 5 happiness, the next red berry costs $3 and gives 2.5 happiness. What should I do with my budget, which is roughly $50? One way to do this is for you to just instruct this person to buy a blueberry or buy a red berry. So for example, let's say I buy a blueberry. When I do that, you can see that the happiness from blueberries now, so we have bought that first blueberry, and now we are considering the next choice. Okay, I've got that blueberry in my stomach now. Should I buy another blueberry or should I buy a red berry? And you can do this exercise again. Let's say that you pick this. I'm just picking randomly here until you assign the entire budget. So let me just do this, just deciding basically each for each additional unit what to do, and then completing the market decision, spending all the budget. Now you can see here that because I selected only blueberries, that's what the consumer is going to try to purchase from the market. You can see that production is going on here. You can see that in fact there is quite a substantial demand for blueberries, mostly driven by me, but there are other consumers in the economy as well. And you know, my consumer got all the blueberries. This is really good. You can see that there is an imbalance in the market. There is less supply than demand of blueberries, and there is way more supply than demand of red berries. So you would expect the market to respond to this excess demand and supply by actually changing the prices a little bit, and that's exactly what's happening here. The price of blueberries has gone up a little bit in order to reduce demand and increase supply, and the opposite happened to red berries. Now you have to make the choice all over again. This consumer is asking you, well, okay, you told me exactly what to do before. Can you now instruct what to do in this particular case when the prices have changed? And you could go again and manually tell them exactly how many red berries and blueberries to consume using the cost-benefit principle. One thing that you should note when you do this is that as the price of something changes, so will the cost-benefit analysis. Let me talk a little bit about this. So the quantity demanded as defined in economics for a consumer represents the quantity of a given good or service that maximize the utility experienced by the individual consuming it. The objective here is for you to make this consumer as happy as possible given the market prices by deciding how much they want to consume of a given good. Now, as these prices are changing, for example, as the price of blueberries here keeps going up in the market because there is an excess demand for that good, blueberries will become more costly. So the marginal utility per dollar will go down because the happiness that you derive from them is not different cycle after cycle, but the price will change cycle after cycle. So as the price goes up, the denominator goes up. If you think about it that way, so this is the marginal utility, for example, for blueberries divided by the price of blueberries. Cycle after cycle, this part of is not changing. The preference of your individual here does not change, but what changes is the price of a blueberry. In this case, it's going up, market cycle after market cycle, because of that excess demand for blueberries, the market is responding by increasing the price. So this, when the denominator of this formula goes up, this overall will go down, will decrease. If something at the denominator becomes bigger, the whole fraction will become lower, which means that in terms of the marginal benefit per dollar of blueberries, that will tend to go down. So the quantity demanded of blueberry goes down as the price of blueberries goes up. And this is the first step to understand what do we mean by quantity demanded, the quantity demanded of a good that is produced in the economy. Very well. This is leading us straight into the concept of demand curve, which represents the relationship between the price of a good or service and the quantity demanded of that good or service. As we were saying here, as the price of a blueberry goes up, it's natural that the quantity demanded of blueberries goes down. This is the demand curve, the relationship between the price of a certain good, blueberries, and the quantity demanded of blueberries. Typically, this is in fact a relationship that follows what we call a law of demand. If the price of blueberries goes up, the quantity demanded of blueberries goes down. If the price of blueberries goes down, the quantity demanded goes up. So there is an inverted relationship between the quantity demanded of something and the prices. This is usually captured in the standard demand curve that we have all seen many times. So the demand curve represents the relationship between the quantity of a given good and the quantity demanded of that good. And it's usually a downward sloping curve because as the price goes up, the quantity tends to go down. There you have it. This is the logic that follows from looking at the utility, the marginal utility of the extra unit of blueberries that you're planning to purchase, divide that by the price, so you get to the marginal utility per dollar. Compare that with the marginal utility per dollar of the alternative, which is the marginal utility per dollar of red berries. Make the cost-benefit decision, purchase the blueberry only if the marginal utility per dollar is greater than the marginal utility per dollar of a red berry. Keep on doing this until that relationship is true. And this creates the demand curve that we usually see in economics. As the price of blueberries goes up, blueberries are relatively more expensive than red berries, so the cost-benefit analysis suggests that we should consume less blueberries. The demand curve is downward sloping. This is the concept of substitution effect. Captures the change in quantity demanded of, say, blueberries, given a change in price of a substitute, like in this case, the only substitute is red berries. So when the price of a blueberry goes down, the substitution effect makes the blueberry more appealing to the consumer, and so we're going to end up consuming more blueberries because they are relatively cheaper compared to if the price of blueberries goes down, we are going to consume more blueberries because now blueberries are relatively cheaper than red berries. And if the price of blueberries goes up, we are going to end up, because of the substitution effect, consuming less blueberries because they are relatively, now blueberries are relatively more expensive than red berries. So this is the substitution effect. I'm also going to mention here in passing, but let's not put too much time or attention into this. There is also an income effect. When the price of a blueberry goes up, well, you are becoming poorer. Your budget is relatively smaller. Your purchasing power is smaller. What is going to be the effect on consumption? Well, it really depends on whether the good is normal or inferior, but I'm not going to talk about that in this particular class. Blueberries and red berries are both normal goods. You want to consume more of them as you get richer, and you want to consume less of them as you get poorer. So we don't have to worry too much about this effect. It's not going to be important here, so we can just forget about it. But keep in mind that when blueberries are becoming more expensive, there are a couple of things that are happening. They are relatively more expensive than the other good now, so the cost-benefit analysis tells you, well, the substitution effect is pushing you to consume less of them because they're now relatively more expensive. And there is also an income effect. When someone gets more expensive, that also reduces your budget, which might make you consume even less of them. These are all the important effects, substitution and income effects, that we see when we observe the demand curve. And this is exactly what we are doing here. We are building a demand curve in automated mode for this consumer. And of course, every time there is a change in the price of blueberries or red berries or both of them, the cost-benefit principle, the cost-benefit principle tells us to change our decision. Our decision will have to respond not only to the price of the thing we are buying, if we are focusing on blueberries, for example, but also on the substitute, in this case, red berries. The price of red berries matters just as much, because what you are comparing in the cost-benefit principle is the relative marginal utility per dollar of the two objects that you're trying to purchase. And we say that two goods are substitutes if the increase in one price in one of the goods determines an increase in the quantity consumed of the other goods. And this is really the example that we have here in this level. Both these goods, so red berries and blueberries, are substitutes. If the price of blueberries goes up, the cost-benefit principle suggests that you should consume less of it and more of red berries. So price of blueberries goes up, the quantity of red berries that you want to consume goes up. Blueberries price up, that makes you want to consume less blueberries, which means in turn that you're going to consume more red berries. So price of blueberries, quantity of red berries going in the same direction. And of course, the same applies if there is a decrease in the price of blueberries, you're going to observe a decrease in the quantity of red berries in the market. Fantastic. And this is all I wanted to say about this level. It touches on important concepts, utility, it touches on the idea of cost-benefit principle applied to consumption of two goods that are substitutes, because in this case, red berries and blueberries give happiness in a way that you substitute one with the other in the way just described. When the price of one goes up, the quantity of the other demanded goes up, and if they behave like this, they are substitutes. And in fact, this is exactly what red berries and blueberries are, substitutes. We touched on the law of demand, we touched on the demand curve, and the important part for me is to highlight that, as usual, the really important thing here is that you understand how we go from the cost-benefit principle to the demand curve in a logical flow. Fantastic. The next thing I want to touch on is I'm going to go here and access the main menu. Next up is this new level, the public goods level. So I'm going to just check this out in easy mode. This level is interesting because it furthers our understanding of the differences between some of the goods that we consume in everyday life. At this point, we have been focusing on blueberries and red berries. Very good. These are private goods. They are private goods because they are excludable and non-rivalrous. Let me give you an example. In this little vignette, you see this character saying, "Hey, thief, this is my chair." And the police officers are there because, this person wants the chair back. And these police officers are gonna uphold the law and give the chair back to the proper owner. This chair is a private good because it's non-excludable. It's excludable, meaning this person who owns the chair can exclude this thief from using it. The law protects ownership, so this person can say, give me my chair back. In other words, this chair is excludable because people that don't own it can be prevented from using it. Like my computer is my computer, and I can prevent other people from using it because I have a property right on it. The other thing that this chair is exemplifying as a private good is that it's rivalrous. Rivalrous, it's a word that just means if the thief is sitting on your chair, prevents you from benefiting from the chair, you cannot use it, both of you using it at the same time. It's a private good because, in other words, there is competition for it. It's either you or me using that chair. There is no way that we both fit in it. Very well. This is a type of definition of a private good that certainly applies to blueberries as well, or red berries. If I own the red berry, I can prevent other people from eating it. And when I eat it, it's definitely something that I'm going to enjoy, and nobody else will be able to enjoy that specific berry that I just ate. In this level, we are going to introduce the concept of, instead, public goods. Public goods are goods that are to a certain extent, non-rivalrous and non-excludable. Let me open my slides again. Public goods are really important in real life. Think about education, health system, national defense. These are all examples of public goods. They're very important in our life. For example, think about national defense. Well, it's non-excludable because if the military is protecting me from a missile coming from abroad, say, well, that protection is afforded to the whole country. It's not possible to say, I'm gonna defend you, Alberto, but not this other person living in Sydney. If the national defense applies to the whole country, it's not possible to exclude people from benefiting from it. It's also non-rivalrous. Protecting me from an attack in Sydney does not really reduce the beneficial effect of that protection for someone else living in Sydney. So very different concept relative to the red berry, blueberries that we've seen so far, which were instead private goods. These public goods are really, really important in society, and so we are introducing the concept in the game as well. Non-rivalry means that one individual's consumption of the good does not impede another individual from consuming it as well. Think about fireworks at the end of the year in Sydney. The fact that I enjoy them does not prevent you to enjoy them as well. Non-rivalrous and non-excludability. No one can be excluded from consuming the good. Again, fireworks in Sydney, end of the year, impossible for the government to say you're gonna see them up in the sky, but you are gonna be excluded from them. It just doesn't work this way. A public park works the similar way. You cannot really prevent people from entering a public park. By definition, is open to everybody. So non-excludability. I'm going to pause this for a second and go on with the game. Here, in this little town, your objective is to try to put down some public goods. So if you go in here, the only tab that you have access in this level is the public good tab. And as part of this, you can explore different types of public goods, like this one or this fountain, right? Let me go, for example, with the fountain. The fountain has an area of effect around it. People that walk by, so I'm actually going to walk a little bit further away with my character. Let me try this little fire first. So this is a fire that people really benefit when they are in that area of effect. So I'm going to put it here. As you can see, this good is going to benefit at the same time these two characters. This character here to the left and this character here to the right, because they are within the positive area of effect of that good. This is an example of a pure public good. Both of them are benefiting from the fire of this little flame. There is no real rivalry in terms of who gets it. All of them, everybody in that area of effect gets it. And it's also non-excludable. Whoever is walking by that little fire will benefit from it by being maybe cheered up. It just creates some utility for everybody around it. So if I now click confirm, we are in this mode here. We wanted to stop the market so that you can really think about how you want to put down this fixed factor. So you have to press in order for the cycle to start. So if I press, you can see that these people are getting now a little happiness around them. And also people in their team are getting happiness by extension too. But these persons, for example, down here, they have not walked into the area of effect, so they're not experiencing that happiness for now. Now you can see that more people are getting into that area of effect, and happiness is more spread out. If I myself go in, you can see that, wow, I got a little bit of happiness. Very well. This is an example of a pure public good, non-excludable and non-rivalrous. If we put down a fountain, the area of effect is going to be even bigger. You have a limited number of goods that you can put down, so the idea here is what is the best position that maximizes happiness in the town so that more are exposed to these public goods. As you can see, public goods really bring a different level of interactions with the idea of consumption of goods. We are breaking some of the rules that we have seen so far pertaining to private goods. So if I run the market again, you can see that these people up here, they're actually getting 2 happiness stars because they're near the fire and they are also near the fountain. And now that I've got closer to the fire, I'm also getting a little boost. So the logic here is that you're not going to worry for now about the cost of providing public goods, but you're just going to see the fundamental way they work in terms of generating happiness on a large sample of the population. Another type of public good, which is a little bit different, is this little bench. So this little bench, if you want a park bench, it's here for everybody to use, so it's non-excludable. Any one of these workers, when they are engaging in leisure time, can use this bench. However, it is rivalrous because if this worker got a seat in it, the other worker won't be able to benefit from it. So there is some rivalry in terms of who ends up using that bench during the day. This is an example of an impure public good. It's still a public good because it's non-excludable, but it's not fully non-rivalrous. Only one person is going to be able to use it at a time. So it doesn't have that pure full non-excludability, full non-rivalry that the fountain has, but it's still not exactly working like a private good because it's non-excludable. We cannot exclude people from benefiting of that little leisure that it gives them to sit on that bench. And this is what you're going to do in this level. Select how and where you place these different public goods, really hopefully gaining an understanding of the rule when you are thinking about public goods and how it differs from the concept of private good. Really important for society, so definitely a big part of the game. You remember that if you don't want to press confirm at every market cycle, you can always just select this option and the market is just gonna go and converge to the equilibrium and automatically go one cycle to the next. You can speed up time and always check how you're doing relative to the benchmark. I'm doing pretty well. This town is pretty happy. So this must not have been a bad allocation, but remember, you can probably do much better than this and gain more happiness out of it. If you go to the main menu, also remember that you can go in hard mode where instead of having a fixed benchmark that you're competing against, you're going to compete against the best student. But you can gain the same amount of points going in easy or hard mode, so it's entirely your choice. And in sandbox mode instead, you can play as long as you want, even if you cannot achieve the benchmark by the number of cycles that are predetermined in that scenario. This is all for these two scenarios. We introduced the concept of demand curve, consumption choice between two goods, how the change in price affects the change in quantity demanded for each goods, the notion of demand, the principle of decreasing marginal utility, all in one scenario. And then in the public goods scenario, we explore a different type of goods. Instead of being private, excludable and rivalrous, we are now thinking about those important goods in society that are non-excludable and non-rivalrous. Definitely a very important ingredient if you want to make your society as happy as possible. Bye bye from the Play Economics team.